The orbital platform known as Parliament Station spun quietly above the amber moon of Kelvos, its polished silver ribs glinting against the void. Within its pressurized corridors, diplomats from 400 species strolled with self-importance, their footsteps echoing across marble tiles quarried from extinct planets. Every 10 seconds, a hovering drone whispered in 14 tongues, "Please lower your weapons and your voices. Parliament welcomes all who speak peace." And yet, peace was not what happened. She was a human woman, 33 years old, brown hair pinned in a bun. A plain navy robe wrapped her frame like she didn't belong to any military or court. No armor, no insignia, just a diplomat's satchel strapped to her shoulder, heavy with old-fashioned printed documents. She moved through the corridor like someone trying to stay small, just another face among 1,000. Behind her trailed the sound of heavy boots, 4 at a time. General Drothvrax of the Zenthari Dominion was 10 feet tall and walked like he owned oxygen itself. His 4 armored legs clacked on the floor in rhythmic arrogance. His primary arms gestured in grand disdain, while his secondary pair curled with nervous tic-taps behind his back. His tusks were freshly oiled, and a new medal hung crooked on his left shoulder, one earned for pacifying a colony by freezing its water supply and watching. "Out of my path, soft-boned parasite," he snarled without slowing. She turned her head slightly. She had stepped aside. He hadn't noticed. Or maybe he had. The next moment came with the silence of tragedy, before sound catches up. His front leg lifted and struck her low in the side. Not a stumble. Not a shove. A kick. Direct. Deliberate. She flew backward with a cry cut short by pain. Her satchel burst open, papers scattering like petals. Her body hit the corridor wall with a sound that froze every species in earshot. A Zelvathi clerk dropped his tray. A Wurg sentinel reached for his communicator. A Rulvek child gasped and covered 2 of her 4 eyes. The woman curled, breathing shallow. Her hand clutched low on her belly. For a moment, no one moved. In that stillness, the echo of the kick kept bouncing between the domed ceiling and polished floors, like an accusation that wouldn't land. Droth didn't even look back. "Humans," he grunted to the air, as if it explained something distasteful. "Wounds and words and weak knees. Shouldn't bring your breeders where decisions are made." The woman didn't cry. She didn't curse. She simply gathered the papers with trembling fingers. Her breathing was uneven. Her left hand never left her lower stomach. From somewhere nearby, someone whispered, "Did he know she was pregnant?" Another muttered, "Maybe she faked it." Earth women are manipulative. The corridor cleared in seconds. Not for her. For him. Power had mass in this part of the galaxy. She finished gathering her papers and stood slowly. Her eyes didn't flash with anger. They dimmed, as if someone had flipped a breaker in her soul. She walked, not limped, toward the diplomatic wing. 1 step at a time, as if rehearsed. Only later would those steps be studied like war footage. 3 hours passed. Parliament convened again. The Grand Hall flickered to life, a chamber designed by neutral artisans to offend no species and comfort none. A giant ring of seats faced inward like a hungry mouth. Screens hovered midair, translating everything in real time. General Drothvrax leaned back in his throne-sized seat, grooming his left tusk with a gold brush. Other military leaders murmured around him, exchanging smug glances and half-hearted condemnations of unfortunate incidents. The Speaker of Stars, a floating jellyfish-like entity named Thylix, cleared its throat through a translator cube. "Before we resume the taxation proposals, Earth has requested a representative be allowed to address the Council regarding." "Denied," Droth barked, voice like boiling tar. "Earth speaks through paperwork, not pain." Regarding a physical altercation on this very station, there was a hum of curiosity. Eyes turned toward the entrance archway. He entered like a man late to church. A human male, maybe in his late 30s. Trim beard. Glasses. Wearing an old Earth Admiral's coat, not military issue, but styled with a historian's flair. One hand held a coffee cup. The other toyed with a stylus. He bowed politely. My name is Silas North. I was summoned to this hearing as a secondary observer, not a speaker. I'm not military. I'm not even a proper ambassador. Just a cultural liaison and historian of human-alien treaties. He smiled with disarming ease. But I was also the husband of the woman General Droth kicked earlier today. A murmur turned to a collective inhale. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't blink. He just sipped his coffee and continued. On Earth, when a woman carrying your child is struck by a man of power, without provocation, several traditions are possible. Some duel. Some sue. Some pray. We did all of those. We also built contingency plans. You see, humans don't forget pain. We categorize it. We archive it. We draw maps around it. And then, he paused, glanced upward as if searching for the right phrase. Then we build entire governments around what to do when it happens again. Vrax scoffed. This is absurd. You're crying over one kick? One moment. Silas chuckled softly. One moment can be enough, General. Asked the species who blinked too long before Earth counterpunched. I do not fear your threats. I'm not threatening you. I'm contextualizing you. He leaned forward, his voice lowering like the hush before a violin string breaks. You kicked a woman who wasn't wearing armor because she didn't need to. You struck a body that's mapped with beacon codes and biometric keys. You touched something you didn't understand. You touched my reason. He turned slightly, tapping his stylus against a tablet. And that moment has now been registered. Across Earth's 12 secure intelligence nodes. Across our auto-response alliances. Across 17 covert protocol systems waiting for the phrase. The General kicked her. Thylex's translator cube flickered. That phrase was just spoken. Out loud. Silas nodded, solemn. Yes. That's how signals work. The lights dimmed for exactly 1 second. A heartbeat across the galaxy. Vrax stood, claws twitching. What have you done? Silas looked at him the way a teacher might look at a cheating child who just triggered the wrong firewall. We didn't come here to declare war, General. We came to log a crime. And you made it personal. He took a step forward. My wife is resting now. Monitored. Safe. And as for our child, he tapped his stylus again. A hologram unfolded behind him, vague, pulsing symbols. The kind military tacticians get nervous around. Our child is now active. Not born yet, but heard. And Earth has an old saying, you don't touch a lion's cub unless you're ready to meet the pride. He smiled again, polite as ever. But let's keep things civil. After all, he sipped his coffee. We're diplomats. The final moment landed in silence, as weightless as a feather, and just as dangerous in the right storm. The Galactic Council didn't breathe. The Zentri War delegates began shifting in their seats. One alien whispered, we kicked the wrong woman. Silas adjusted his glasses. No, he said quietly. You kicked the right one. That was the point. The tea was Earl Grey, loose leaf, brewed from a gravity-balanced kettle that hissed politely as it poured. Silas North never served instant. He believed in rituals, even in orbit, especially in orbit. The drawing room aboard Earth's diplomatic wing on Parliament Station was understated. Mahogany floors, real earthwood, not synthetic, heavy green curtains framing a hexagonal viewport, and a table set for 5. No guards. No weapons. No show of force. Just lemon slices, buttered scones, and porcelain cups with a small floral pattern. The invitation had gone out quietly. 3 generals from 3 different galactic powers had accepted. Curiosity had outweighed caution. General Droth Vrax did not attend. Silas stirred his tea with a lazy grace, his left hand resting on a folder stamped with a human Terran Concord's golden seal. His smile was unreadable, part butler, part chessmaster. The Treltsy delegate arrived first, a boneless, mist-bodied philosopher warrior who bowed by condensing into fog and reforming in the guest chair. Then came Admiral Viratom of the Krell Unity, whose skin glimmered like obsidian when she moved, each syllable of her voice laced with subharmonic judgment. The third was Tharn Gryvex of the Blightborn, a creature with coral armor and 3 mouths, all of which laughed at once when Silas offered sugar cubes. The pleasantries lasted 20 minutes. Silas listened more than he spoke. He asked about their families, their cultures, their weather preferences back home. No mention of the incident. No mention of his wife. Until he said, gently, while refilling a cup, "Do you know what we call people like General Vrax back home?" The 3 guests leaned forward, intrigued, uncertain. "Bullies," Silas said, smiling. "And on Earth, bullies have a peculiar expiration date. They last exactly as long as they are useful or amusing. After that, well, we don't raise our voices. We raise the room temperature." The Blightborn chuckled until Silas added, "This station's room temperature is Earth-regulated, by the way. Just an Earth courtesy." A beat of silence followed. He sipped. "Don't mistake our manners. On our world, politeness is not submission. It's a warning label." The words hung there, warm, steady, unnerving. From the window, behind him, the starscape shifted. A Zentri battlecruiser drifted into view, slowly docking at a secondary bay. General Drotha's flagship. Its outline was sharp and ugly, its cannons always hot even in orbit. "They're positioning defense units near Earth quarters now," Viratom said. A warning curled beneath the observation. "Yes," Silas replied. "Fear often wears a uniform before it wears a consequence." "You're provoking war," hissed Tharn Grivex's central mouth. "We're documenting war," Silas said. "Provoking it would be," he paused, gently placing a ceramic plate onto the table, more theatrical. "Like, say, kicking a pregnant woman in front of 40 cameras and 16 species." A hollow drone pinged above, streaming station alerts. The Zentri had just locked down 3 corridors. Parliament's emergency security team had been overridden. The logs blinked red. "Do you know what my wife used to say?" Silas asked, still smiling. "She said diplomacy is just assassination, done with gloves and biscuits." The Treltsy fog rippled with discomfort. From beneath the tea table, Silas pulled out a small black case. He opened it without flourish. Inside lay a set of 8 worn baby socks, each rolled neatly, labeled in thin black pen. The alien stared. "These," he explained, "were part of a project she led. Psychological warfare studies. We ran experiments with different triggers. Do you know what the #1 emotional detonator was for humans across 7 cultures? Not blood, not flags, not wealth." He lifted one sock, pressing it lightly between thumb and forefinger. "Children's clothing," he said. "Especially when found alone. Especially when it shouldn't be." He laid the sock on the table between them. The air cooled. "Of course," he added, "these aren't real. Just prototypes. But symbols carry weight." Viratom's voice sharpened. "What are you planning?" "We're not planning. We already planned." Then came the first ping. It came from the Blightborn's wrist tablet, a report blinking in alien glyphs. Then another. Then more. One by one, the guests began receiving alerts. Disrupted relays. Fractured databanks. Entire sectors of the galactic internet going dark. Communication satellites no longer responding to pings from Earth-aligned relays. Silas gently placed a spoon down. "We asked your systems not to store footage of what happened earlier. Not because we feared scandal, but because we knew your networks weren't designed to survive the footage being watched." Viratom blinked. "You embedded something?" "We embedded a choice," Silas said softly. "We expected only the Zentri to be foolish enough to try and view it on an unsecured loop. But evidently, curiosity travels faster than protocol." The Blightborn's secondary mouth gurgled. "What kind of weapon is this?" "A quiet one," Silas said. "Earth has learned that the most devastating weapons are the ones you only realize were weapons after you've touched them." "Is the woman your wife alive?" "Very. And monitored. And broadcasting." "To who?" "To everyone who owes her a favor." Outside the window, 3 more vessels dropped out of hyperspace. They bore no Earth insignia, no flags, no formal introduction. One was a Vardan scavenger ship, supposedly extinct. Another bore the symbol of the old pact, dissolved 5 centuries ago. The third was simply blank, but its engines pulsed in the precise rhythm of Earth's ancient Morse code. Silas didn't look. He didn't need to. She made friends, he said almost fondly. In old wars, in cold missions, in forgotten treaties. When someone like her gets kicked, someone like me makes tea. But someone like them, he gestured to the stars, makes judgment. Suddenly, the Treltsy fog being collapsed into vapor and streamed out the door. The Blightborn followed, muttering in 3 languages about breaking neutrality pacts. Only Vera Tom remained unreadable. Her obsidian skin shimmered as she stared across the table at Silas. "Why not just kill Vrax?" she asked quietly. Silas's expression didn't change, but his voice cooled. "Because war isn't about killing. It's about memory. Vrax will die. But first, he will be remembered as the general who kicked a woman and triggered the downfall of everything he stood for. We're not just ending him, Admiral. We're engraving him." She stood slowly, her eyes scanning his face. "What will Earth do when the galaxy turns on it?" "Earth," Silas said, rising to walk her to the door, "doesn't fear turning. We were born spinning on a rock that taught us balance. We'll stand just fine." As she crossed the threshold, Silas leaned close. "We've never needed the galaxy to love us. We just needed it to see us." And now, he paused, adjusting his glasses. "Now you can't look away, can you?" She left without a word. The tea cooled. The sock remained untouched. Minutes passed. From a hidden drawer beneath the table, Silas removed a second folder. Inside it, photographs. Vrax. Parliament Station's layouts. Guard schedules. A checklist titled, "Soft Provocation Timeline. Approved Steps Only." One item remained unchecked. Then, from his coat, Silas pulled a final object. A simple plastic ID tag. Worn. Charred at the edge. The name faded, but legible. Lieutenant A. North, Earth Navy status. Kia, revoked. He set it down beside the sock. From the corridor came the growing sound of boots. But not military ones. Diplomatic envoys. Earth-aligned species. Old allies. Forgotten enemies. He straightened his coat, his back to the door, eyes on the stars. The time for tea had passed. Now came judgment. The file wasn't supposed to exist. Even inside the covert archives of the Grell Syndicate, whose operatives could blackmail sons into dimming, the entry labeled Silas North returned nothing but blank entries, locked metadata, and an access log that looped endlessly without revealing a source. The screen glitched each time his name was entered, as if even the alphabet refused to speak it too loud. But someone always digs too deep. Soren of the Fifth Eye, an archivist bred for paranoia, had traced the thread long enough. Beneath half a dozen diplomatic aliases, 2 stage deaths, and 1 long-defunct Earth ambassador program, he finally found it. Not a name, but a fragment of a mission title, buried inside an obsolete military encryption protocol. Vowkeeper // husband level / access revoked. Soren paused. The word husband didn't usually flag lethal clearance. He opened the file. Or rather, it opened him. First, the sound. A heartbeat, steady, slow. Then data unfolded like a blooming weapon. Images, dossiers, recorded mission logs, body counts. It was not just intel. It was choreography. Over 73 operations in the last decade bore the same shadow. Coordinated diplomatic collapses, planetary coups that left Earth untouched, alliances redirected like rivers that didn't know they'd been dammed. And behind every one of them, the same blurry figure, Silas North. But Silas North didn't exist before a certain date. His records began 10 years ago, fabricated in one sweep. No school, no childhood, no Earth registry. And yet, somehow, his fingerprints were found on the original peace treaty of Wormholt, which predated his birth by 40 years. That's when Soren panicked. Because in one of the operation footnotes, half redacted, a name surfaced not as a leader, but a tactic. A name spoken only in Earth's ghost channels. The whisper you weren't supposed to say near diplomats with real memories. Auric Nathaniel Holloway. Not Silas North, but the man who became him. Auric Holloway had once been humanity's best war diplomat hybrid, trained in psychological destabilization, culture flip negotiations, and biocode deployment through soft diplomacy. He disappeared after the siege of Eidolon Prime, presumed dead, though no body was ever found. Earth claimed he had sacrificed himself, rerouting a drone strike. The galaxy mourned. Statues were carved. A school was named after him. But Auric hadn't died. He'd gone underground, and reemerged not as a soldier, but as a husband. He had married Major Evelyn Mareth, human intelligence operative, linguist, specialist in subdermal encryption, known as the Mother of Three Fronts, for outsmarting three major galactic regimes in simultaneous diplomatic standoffs. She had also disappeared from active duty. Retired, they said. Expecting a child, they said. She wasn't expecting a child. Not yet. She was expecting an opportunity. The kick hadn't broken her. It had activated her. The truth of what happened on Parliament Station wasn't just personal. It was orchestrated. The public had seen a pregnant woman struck. But the woman was not the victim. She was the vessel. Soren kept scrolling, past the footage never shown on standard channels. Biometric readings of her vitals before and after the incident. Micro fluctuations in pulse suggesting no panic, no trauma. Her blood pressure had remained unnaturally consistent. As if prepared. As if timed. The baby? Non-existent. Her scans were hollow, but not empty. Inside her was a military-grade data hive, encoded with neural lock sequences that could only be unlocked by one thing: impact. The moment Droth kicked her, it had transmitted. To Silas. Or rather, Auric. Soren closed the file, trembling. He turned to one of his aides, an insectoid scribe whose wings buzzed nervously even in silence. "Delete what I saw," he whispered. "Purge everything, including me if you must." The aide asked a simple question. "Why?" Soren answered without blinking. "Because I just looked into the eyes of the galaxy's most dangerous strategist. And he's not here for war. He's here for correction." Meanwhile, on Parliament Station, Silas, Auric, walked the long corridor that led to the central observation tower. The hallway was empty. The kind of empty that has been cleared, not forgotten. His coat rustled slightly as he moved. Underneath the layers of diplomat's cotton were a dozen woven sensors, pulsing lightly with unread frequencies. His glasses weren't prescription. They were data lenses, reflecting galactic troop movements in microburst flashes no one else could see. A technician tried to intercept him. Young, green-badged, probably new. "Sir, the council's not expecting you to." Silas didn't stop walking. He simply said they should be. That was all it took. The technician backed away. Not because of the tone, but because of the calm. The kind of calm that suggested he had already rehearsed this moment 100 times. Inside the tower, a single console waited. It was ceremonial, meant for observation, not command. But to Silas, it was a familiar friend. The same model he had once used during the siege of RO6 to make 3 moons vanish under accidental orbital adjustments. He typed in 6 characters. VK Proto. A click. A pause. Then the interface changed. Earth's private signal channel blinked once in the corner. Status, awake. His fingers moved in a rhythm, like music. Not typing. Conducting. He wasn't accessing a weapon. He was tuning a story. Silas had never needed missiles to win wars. He just needed someone to write the wrong footnote. And Droth had kicked the ink across the page. He opened a live hologram. A private channel. No audience. No archive. His wife answered. She was in a recovery bay on Earth's quietest lunar facility. Her hair was down. Her robe was soft. But her eyes? Combat clear. "You dropped the sock," she said. "It landed well. Does he suspect? He's looking up my real name. Which means it's time." Her expression softened. A trace of emotion. Tender, but contained. "Do you miss it?" she asked. "Being you." Silas, no Auric paused. He considered the question like a man offered old shoes. "I miss her," he said. "The version of you who wasn't weighed down by what we needed to do." "You didn't force me." "No," he said. But I let them think they hurt you. That's what makes it sting." She said nothing. She didn't need to. They had always known this mission would come with ghosts. "You'll need to bury him publicly," she said. "The general. Quiet retribution won't be enough now." He nodded. "The galaxy will need a story." He tapped his earpiece once, then glanced out the viewport. More ships were arriving. Not Earth's, but Earth-aligned. Silent fleets. Forgotten convoys. Peacekeepers who had once pledged neutrality and were now gathering like rain clouds behind glass. Each one had received the transmission. Not a declaration of war. Just coordinates. And a timestamp. And the baby's heartbeat. That's all it took. "Is the real file secure?" she asked. "Yes. Even the Grelv can't access it." "What will they call you when this is over?" He looked up, smiling faintly. "Hopefully late for tea." She rolled her eyes, but the edge of her mouth curved. The feed ended. Auric Holloway, once a name only known in classified whispers, stood alone in a room filled with stars and silence. And the galaxy kept spinning, unaware it had already pivoted around its newest axis. Because, for the first time in history, a war had begun with a single kick. And the husband didn't raise his fists. He raised a story, and the stars were about to read it. Behind him, the console chimed softly. A message had arrived. From Grelv Syndicate. Subject: compromised file detected. Request for clarification. Message content: who are you? He typed 4 words. Then hit send. I am the consequence. The message hit Parliament Station before dawn cycle. It arrived without sender or signature. Only a pulse beat audio file encoded in frequencies matching the vitals of a human fetus in its 3rd trimester. A baby's heartbeat. Measured. Calm. And rising. By the time General Droth Vrax received the report, 6 systems had entered comms lockdown. Several minor species were evacuating their envoys, citing escalating atmospheric threat. A Zenthri cruiser had already withdrawn from orbit, citing a malfunction in ethical trajectory systems. Droth knew better. The other generals were afraid. He wasn't. Let them be afraid of stories. He ruled by proof. But even he hesitated when he reached the station's command deck and saw the live surveillance feed. Dozens of vessels, hovering in silent geosynchronous alignment. Not Earth's fleet. Not official. Yet every single one pulsed with a signature frequency, identical to the heartbeat. They weren't here to invade. They were waiting for a name. His aide, a twitchy Jarnik lieutenant with excellent hearing and no courage, trembled behind him. "It's not a warship formation, sir. They're not postured to fire." Droth narrowed his yellow eyes. "What are they postured for?" The aide swallowed, witnessing. Droth spat. He turned to the control array and activated a comm override, flooding the station with his voice. "This is General Droth Vrax. I am invoking command supremacy under Galactic Clause 45. Earth's delegation is to be detained. Now, I want Silas North brought here. I want his codes broken. And I want that woman's chamber sealed until we figure out what's transmitting from her." His words stopped cold. The lights went out. Not dimmed. Not flickered. Gone. For 3 seconds, silence. Then a single emergency floodlight switched on overhead, casting the entire command deck into stark contrast, shadows stretching like knives. The emergency comm array buzzed once, then came to life. But it wasn't Silas North on the screen. It was her, Evelyn. She was seated calmly in a white med chamber, her robe folded neatly, her hands resting on her belly. There was no visible equipment, no wires, just her, and something beneath her skin that blinked faintly, a small pulse of red where her navel curved. She smiled softly, without apology. "Hello, General." Droth roared, "What is this? How did you hijack?" She tilted her head slightly. "Don't raise your voice, General. You might wake the baby." That silence again, the kind with weight. Evelyn's voice was warm, slow, and certain. "You think you kicked a woman. You didn't. You activated a dead switch wrapped in flesh and vows. I am not pregnant with a child. I am pregnant with a message. A final protocol. One only Earth could authorize, and only you could trigger. Droth lunged for the terminal. The feed didn't cut. "Silas," she said gently, as if on cue. He entered the deck from behind. He wore no weapon, no armor, just the same old coat, now rolled at the sleeves. His hair was unkempt. His glasses reflected the emergency light like twin knives. "I'm not here to fight," Silas said. "You've already lost that war. I'm here to explain the rules you just broke. I demand your arrest." "I'm already on trial," Silas said. "Just not by you." Droth snarled. "You used her, your own wife, as bait." "She volunteered," Silas said. "Because she understands something you never will, that Earth does not start wars for glory. We start wars when someone mistakes mercy for weakness." He stepped forward. "See, you didn't just kick my wife. You triggered Endgame. That's not a weapon. That's a reality shift. You hit the biological housing unit of a living protocol keyed to biometric rage and old Earth debts." The baby's heartbeat played again, louder now, echoing through the deck like thunder behind walls. "It's just a recording," Droth growled. "No," Silas replied. "It's the master key." That heartbeat was encoded with 20 years of sleeper cell contracts. Every time you heard it, someone woke up. Outside the window, the ships began to move, not attacking, just unfolding. Lights turned inward. Beacons aimed at the station. It looked almost beautiful. "You wanted to silence us," Silas said. "You mocked Earth's history, our emotions. You thought anger makes us weak." Droth's fists tightened. Silas smiled faintly. "But we don't act from anger. We act from precision. You stepped into the middle of a 10-year net. Every species that pledged peace with Earth, every former enemy we forgave, every favor we never called in. They're here now. Because you gave us a reason." "I'll kill her myself," Droth said. "I'll rip that protocol from her spine." "You'll never reach her. I'm not afraid of one man." Silas stepped closer, his voice calm. "Good. Because I'm not one man." Droth lunged. Silas didn't flinch. Before Droth's claws reached him, the room stopped. Gravity tilted. A pulse knocked the air sideways. From the emergency comm port, Evelyn's voice returned, unshaken. "You just entered Protocol Endgame's third stage. Judgment initiated." Silas leaned in close. "And for the record," he whispered, "her real name isn't Evelyn. And mine was never Silas." Droth's limbs failed him. Something in his blood shorted. He stumbled, blinking, trying to speak. His veins lit faintly blue. "Earth doesn't send assassins anymore," Silas said. "We send husbands." Droth collapsed to his knees. "Why?" he gasped. "Because you kicked her," Silas said. "And on Earth, we don't leave love unanswered." Outside, the ships turned their lights outward and broadcasted one unified message. It wasn't a threat. It was a signal, a heartbeat. One last time. Then silence. Across 3 galaxies, weapons powered down. No shots were fired. But governments fell. All because a general made the mistake of believing in power more than consequence. Silas stood over Droth's body, not dead, but erased. Identity scrubbed. Implants fried. His name would not echo in history. Only hers. He reached into his pocket and pulled something small. A real baby sock. And dropped it onto the floor beside Droth's collapsed form. "She told you," he said softly. "We're very old-fashioned about this." Then he turned and walked away. No guards followed. No alarms rang. Just a corridor stretching ahead, quiet, long, and earned. Behind him, the universe was changing. And no one knew the baby's name had never been meant for a child. It was for the consequence. And its name was Protocol Endgame.